Welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays talk about and review their favorite Star Wars content while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and this has been an exciting week for us, Bradley, over in Star Wars land. We've had a really big thing happen. After years and years, literally years of waiting, something exciting has finally happened. Star Wars Hunters is finally out, available for download on mobile, Nintendo Switch, and other platforms.
Yeah, that literally came up naturally in conversation today with someone I work with, and they were like, "This game looks like actual shit."
Like, I downloaded it. I previewed it at Anaheim 2 fucking years ago.
Okay.
2 years ago, I previewed this game in Anaheim, and now it's out. And I'm like, why did you take this long?
So how is Star Wars Overwatch? How is it?
I haven't played it because
or Star Wars Fortnite or whatever it is.
Here's the thing, Bradley. I forgot it existed.
I think a lot of people did.
The day it came out. I forgot it existed, and it was only reminded when I got, because I'm signed up for the StarWars.com emails, because I like news filtered directly into my inbox. I got an email that was like, Star Wars Hunters is now available. And so I downloaded it on my Switch Lite. We're going to find out later. I would say later tonight, but let's be fucking for real. As soon as we're done recording, I'm just going to go play more Persona 5. But eventually I'll get to playing Star Wars Hunters in its finished form.
You're right, eventually.
I do recommend the book. It's written by the guy who co-wrote the Nico D'Angelo book. Book's actually pretty good. It's a basic middle grade sports story, but it's a really good one. No, I'm making a joke about how ridiculous it's been that Hunters has taken forever. No, it's been an exciting week for Gold Squadron gays for an entirely different reason, Bradley. And that reason is I finally got to season 4 of Elite.
Oh, that's right. You went to the special screening of Acolyte.
Yeah, after I watched season 4 of Elite. I'm trying really not to talk about the Acolyte, Bradley.
Fair enough.
I'm trying to avoid talking about it because I feel like if I do, then I won't stop.
Right. So we'll just say that you saw the early screenings and that was it. And you
Yes, I did see. So I went to the fan screening of the Acolyte. I just linked up with a couple of people I knew, and we had a really great time. We got really good seats. We watched the first 2 episodes on the big screen. It was incredible. And then I came home, and the next day I watched it again. And then you also watched it.
I did.
The next day. But there was this glorious 23-hour period, Bradley, where I knew what was in the first 2 episodes of the Acolyte, and you didn't.
Must be nice. Although
it was wonderful.
There was also other Star Wars influencers that knew at least 3 or 4 days before us.
Way before I did, because we did not get invited to the Acolyte premiere. Not that you would have been able to go.
No, I wouldn't have been able to go. But I mean, then again, if we had been invited, I would have left this job.
You would have cough, I'm sick. Let me get on a plane and quarantine myself.
I legit, I'm not fucking kidding you. I would have told them, like, guys, I have a grandparent that just fucking died. Like, I have to go to California right now. It's only for a day. Remember,
Bradley, whenever you start a new job, you have 4 grandparents.
That's right.
Use them wisely.
Exactly.
No, Acolyte's good. Just as a reminder, we are not talking about it until we get through with the Bad Batch. So the entire thing will be out. It will be September that we will discuss the Acolyte. And then we will discuss Tales of the Empire. And then we will finally be back on track. And I'm sure at some point I will crowbar in a chance to talk to Bradley about Elite Season 4. But you'll have to keep listening to the podcast to see if I can successfully do that. I am also kind of stalling for time because this is a really good episode, but I don't have a lot of notes for it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'll save it for my one thing I liked and one thing I did.
Okay.
Part of it, yeah.
Okay. That might be a good segue into it because I think the one thing I liked and one thing I didn't like both go hand in hand and also explain my experience rewatching this episode.
This week, we talk about The Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 6, titled Infiltration. The Batch reunites with an ally in need. Charles, what's one thing you liked about this episode and one thing you did not?
One thing I liked was a really slow ramping up of tension. I liked the constant cutaway shots to the CX trooper infiltrating the titular action action of this episode. So I did like the Hitchcockian like show us the bomb under the table type thing, to where it's not like weird stuff is happening around the base and you don't know what's happening, et cetera, et cetera. Like you clearly see the CX trooper running around, setting up things, realizing Omega's there, being like, fuck, the plan has to change, and then doing his thing. So I really liked how it was paced like that. One thing I disliked was that the entire episode was nothing but setup. That it basically, the stuff goes off, there's some firefighting that's exchanged, Rex and Omega and all of them very quickly get away, but they're still running for their lives, and that's where the episode ends. And so all of the like juicy action stuff is going to be in the next episode. I think there's a reason they released this as a two-parter, that they didn't let this one stand on its own. But that was my one thing I liked and one thing I didn't like. And also really just most of my experience of watching this episode was, yep, we're building up, and yep, we're having a more conversation about Crosshair and Tantus, and yep, we've cut back to the clone trooper, and I don't have notes for guy runs down hallway. We've seen the hallway before. I can't point out every time we've seen the Teth hallway. I'm not going to one-for-one this episode in the Clone Wars movie. That's a spoiler for later in the episode. Bradley, what was one thing you liked and one thing you did not?
One thing I liked was the return of, Hauser and some of the other clones. One thing I did not like was the return of Hauser and some of the other clones, because there's so many names in this episode that T. Bradley Baker had to do God knows how many fucking voices in this episode for, let's see, 2 clone assassins, Wolf, Hauser, Greer. Literally all the bad.
Hold on, because I've got the IMDb page for the episode up for reasons we will get to in a minute. I'm now going to read every character D. Bradley Baker voices in this episode.
All right.
Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, Captain Rex, Clone Troopers, Clone X Troopers. So there's 2 of those. Commander Scorch, Commander Wolf, Fireball, Greer, Hauser, Lieutenant Hilo, Samson, and Batcher.
So that's like at least, to my guesstimate, 16.
16 characters.
Right.
That one man voices in this episode alone.
I'm not saying I didn't like it because it was like bad. I'm just saying I didn't like it because it's hard to keep track sometimes about like who some of these clones are. I'm like, wait, am I supposed to know who that one is? Am I like some of the newer ones? I think it's Fireball.
Most of them know. I looked it up, and really the only one we've seen before that's in the main group that's in the Teth Monastery is Hauser, and obviously Rex. Most of the others, like Greer's new, Samson's new, and at that point I stopped Googling them because I was like,
they're all random.
It's random clones that we've really never seen, or we've seen in earlier episodes of the Bad Batch. They're not really from the Clone Wars.
Got it. And then
Echo. Echo's also in this, so it's now up to 17 characters that D. Bradley Baker has voiced in this one episode.
It's too much. It's like leave this man alone. Leave this man alone.
No, keep giving this man paychecks.
Does he get a different paycheck for every character, or is it just like a generic, like you worked, you get one pay?
That's an excellent question for voice actors to answer for us, because I don't know. Do voice actors get paid by the time? Do they get paid by the line?
Right.
Like, I'm assuming they get paid by the time, but I don't know what the rates of scale. This would be an interesting question for voice actors.
Right.
If you were a voice actor, please let me know how do y'all get paid? Because I'm kind of curious how much money D. Bradley Baker is making off this. What was your one thing that was your one thing you disliked?
Yeah, they're pretty much the same.
There was a ton of clones, and you weren't sure whether or not you were supposed to know who they were.
Who they all were, yeah.
You're not. You want to take us into the first section, Bradley?
Section 1. We begin with Rex escorting Senator Avi Singh and his droid to a safe house at night, with Hauser keeping watch. They meet with Senator Rio Chuchi and discuss growing dissent against the Emperor. The clone assassin CX-1 sneaks through the tunnels and surprises the clone Greer, choking him with a blaster. CX-1 throws a bomb at the group and flees. Rex and Hauser then pursue the assassin underground. CX-1 almost gets away but is stunned by another clone's blaster. In hyperspace, the group travels with CX-1. Rex and Hauser discuss a data puck recovered from the assassin's gear.
We have seen now the return of Senator Avi Singh, who remember as a separatist senator, with a different voice actor. Did you catch this, Bradley?
I didn't actually. I thought it was the same, so I didn't bother to.
I also thought it was the same, and then I went, "Wait a minute! I'm pretty sure this is not the same guy."
Oh, well,
Let
who is
me
it?
let me see who voiced him originally before I tell you who's voicing him now.
Copy that. I was like, okay. I just assumed it was the same guy, so I didn't even think twice about bringing up the voice actor.
Yeah, in season 1, he is voiced by Alexander Siddig, who is the Prince of Dorne in Game of Thrones.
Got it.
Um, that's he's also apparently Julian Bashir in Deep Space Nine. I did not know that. Now the character in this episode is actually being voiced by a gentleman named Danny Jacobs. He is most known, according to IMDb, as the voice of King Julian in a couple of different Madagascar things. He is a couple of voices in the game Batman Arkham Asylum. This is not his first gig in Star Wars. Looks like he's been in a couple of the Lego Star Wars things. He's been in Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. He's been in Lego Star Wars All-Stars, Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures. This basically his gig. So he is now voicing Senator Sin. Rio Chuchi's still being voiced by Jennifer Hale.
Okay, good. Because I was like,
So
I was like, I hope we're
she's
not
still
changing
being
all.
yeah, no, it's just this one voice actor that we've changed. Rio Chuchi still being voiced by Jennifer Hale. And yes, Daddy Hauser is also back.
Thank God.
Thank God, the sexy man is back.
Even though he looks exactly the same as his brothers, but thank God he's back. He's so hot.
You know what it is? You know what it is? I think I figured it out. I think I figured out what it is.
Yes.
It's not only the silver fox hair, it's the fact that he clearly styles it. Because the thing is, that's a man who knows how to apply some investment in his appearance. I didn't know how to
does
finish
his
this.
hair or something. Like
Definitely does his hair.
I don't know what it is, but you're right. I when we see his model or something, I don't know what it is. The way they've done his model or something, I feel like he styles his hair differently. I don't know what it is, even though I get it. He looks exactly the same as the other ones, but there's something like in my brain. I just know he's different. I don't know why.
There's some
I just
je ne
know.
sais quoi about him that is like, I really think it's the silver hair. I really think it's the silver hair that's doing it. Whatever. The point is, he's back and he's hot.
I love him, and I never want him to die and or anything bad happen to him ever.
I was so worried he was going to die in these episodes. I saw him and I was like, they're going to kill him off.
I was gonna say spoiler alert, but
Spoiler alert, he's going to die. Spoilers for the next 2 episodes, he does not die.
right, which is
He
great.
does live throughout the next 2 episodes. Senator Singh is still kind of doing this whole like, our desire for true independence has not faded. We still want to be independent. And Chuchi's kind of like, yeah, I think y'all might have had a point.
Yeah, the senator, he said something about like, oh yeah, the separatists still want freedom or whatever. And then she goes, yeah, I mean, my people too are like, ugh, this empire thing is not working out. We kind of want to separate too.
It's interesting because we haven't really seen the alliance to restore the republic yet. You know, we're still a decade out from anything remotely close to the rebellion.
Right.
And trying to get a new republic going. We're still in the pre-era before even all of the different factions in Andor that we see arguing.
Yeah, you're right.
We're before that. Nobody knows what rebellion against the Empire even looks like. Nobody except Saw Gerrera is really trying. And Saw Gerrera is less trying to rebel and more just like blowing things up because fuck the Empire, which I really can't blame him for. But yeah, I found that really interesting. I also found really interesting, piggybacking off that too, is Chuchi kind of explains that like Palpatine's not all powerful at this point.
Right. She's noticing that there's growing dissent in the fact that like, hey, he's having trouble like controlling all of this. Like the empire's growing, but it's like, we can't it's early stages of the empire.
It hasn't settled in. And like the thing is, he can't wage war on the entire galaxy all at once. And Singh points out, like, troops are constantly being deployed places, but the thing is, he can't do that everywhere. He kind of needs the Senate to add legitimacy, which is why we still have an Imperial Senate. And they haven't gotten the idea of the Empire being this unbeatable status quo into people's heads yet. People still remember the Republic. The Republic was like 5 minutes ago.
Right.
People haven't settled into the idea that this is just how it is yet. And eventually they will. They'll get to that point when there's a new generation that grows up, or at least that's what the Emperor is hoping will happen. That as generations turn over, people just won't remember the Republic anymore. But he's not yet there. so they can have these conversations right now. And it's going to get increasingly harder to have them as time goes on. Again, looking at you, Andor.
I really wish that they would have done Bad Batch closer to Andor a little bit, only for the sheer fact that, or at least done another season a little closer. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like if I know this show is meant to kind of bridge the gap slightly from Rogue One-ish time to, or actually
It's
Rebels
trying to, it's
really,
kind of
like,
going between the prequels and specifically Rebels. It's
right.
leading into Rebels a lot. Particularly the first season sets up a lot of Rebels early.
Right.
If you're watching it in chronological order, like for example, First Steps, a Star Wars podcast, a really good podcast that you should listen to. But if you're listening to it, if you're watching it in chronological order, it does like lead from Revenge of the Sith into the opening of Rebels as
Right.
well. But we also see different disparate groups like starting. I feel like now we've got this, but we're still kind of missing stuff in the middle.
Right.
Between this and the beginning of Rebels / Andor, because they're happening in the same year. Like,
Right.
what happened to the more like organized groups that we knew around this point to lead us to the point where there's a bunch of different cells all disagreeing with each other that we see there? Like, what happened to Rex's movement? What happened to Rex?
Right, because this episode theoretically is setting up that episode of Rebels, essentially, where
That's what I thought.
we end up with Rex.
Well, that's what I thought. But then, as like when they all got all the clones, spoilers for the next episode, basically the whole operation gets wiped out. I thought when that happened, I was like, that's the end of it. And then we'll get to it when we get to literally the end of the finale. Like one of the last scenes of it, it is basically like, no, that's still going on. Like that's still happening.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think there's going to be like a Clone Rebellion show or something, but it's kind of like, I do get where they're coming from because it does feel like a large chunk of the universe story is missing.
Yeah, we're still missing a gap. I know yeah, we're missing a lot of gaps, but because they're not going to give us every single year of every single, on the timeline in between.
Not yet. Give them about 50 years and they'll get there. Well, we got this and then Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, like, we go from this to a world where the path is kind of the biggest thing, to Andor and Rebels where it's different groups, and then throughout Rebels it coalesces into one rebellion because Mon Mothma's and Bail Organa's group kind of wins out. And then eventually we, get to a point where it's the rebellion as we know it, and then it becomes the New Republic. But we're missing like some chapters in the middle there, I feel like. Then we head over to the Teth Monastery. Bradley, do you recognize the Teth Monastery?
I recognize it because you said it was important when we were first talking about it in episode 0, and now I'm like, I know it's from the Clone Wars movie, but
it's from the Clone Wars movie.
Yeah.
It's a callback to the Clone Wars movie. It's where they're hiding Stinky the Hutt in the movie. And there's a really sick scene where ATTEs climb up the side of a mountain. It's very cool. This is that location. They're going back here. So it's really interesting. Did you see any of those side-by-side comparisons?
No, I didn't. Is it like...
There's side-by-side comparisons. Let me see if I can actually find one.
Yeah, maybe put it in the chat so I can see. But
maybe put it in the chat so you can see it. Side-by-side comparisons of the Teth Monastery, what it looked like in the Clone Wars versus... found one.
Okay.
So I'm going to copy this image, and I'm just going to drop it in the chat, and I want you to give me your impression.
All right, let's see.
Looking at this image of the Teth Monastery in the Clone Wars and the Teth Monastery in the Bad Batch, what do you think?
It looks like someone forgot to clean their house. It's been a minute. It looks like it's kind of falling apart. I'm looking at it's actually really crazy how one of the towers is broken off, and actually 2 of them I think are broken.
Well, it's also
off.
funny because if you look at this image, the Teth Monastery, the animation is so much better.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
One of the details that I noticed looking at the side by side is the Teth Monastery in the screenshot from the Clone Wars movie is so high up that there's clouds below it that are obscuring the ground because they couldn't animate the whole ground from this far up. And if you look at the one from Bad Batch, you can see the horizon line.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I guess maybe they were just having a really cloudy day in the Clone Wars,
Yes, they were just having a cloudy day
and stuff.
Well, no, it's because this movie came out in 2008, 2009.
No, for sure.
And it's a year of our Lord 2024.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with the animation for sure. It's
It's
gorge.
developed a lot in 20
Yeah.
years.
Oh,
Like
for sure.
my God, it is breathtakingly good. They also have a really sick setup inside. They've got like a proto rebel base thing going on where they've got the little like table, the glowing table, from Yavin from
Sure, yeah.
Rogue One and New Hope, where they're all crowded around the table. They've got like
70s
their own.
style stuff.
Well, it's the communicator. It's like
Right.
one of those comm units that they had on like the bridges of stuff of ships in the Clone Wars and things. But the whole setup really invokes like a classic Rebel setup, which is really cool. My next note just says Hauser is still hot. I do feel like we covered this adequately, but it is worth mentioning again. That was all of my notes. Hauser finished me off.
Okay. Oh, did he now? I bet.
Oh, I wish.
Section 2. At the base camp, CX1 wakes up and Rex reassures him that he is still one of them despite what he's done, but the prisoner remains silent. Meanwhile, on Tantus, Commander Scorch activates a clone assassin, explaining that the CX1 trooper has been compromised. Back at the base, Rex tries to get information about Tantus' location, but CX1 stays quiet. Fireball interrupts, revealing that CX1's data puck was a target register with Sing and Omega as targets. Rex orders Fireball to contact Echo and Hunter urgently.
I find it interesting that Rex remains, even after all this time, hell bent on saving as many clones as possible. Because he really tries with this CX troop. He tries really hard to get this guy to defect to their side. It doesn't work, but he tries really hard. And I think that's a nice thing about Rex is that he keeps trying to do this, which again continues to raise the question, how did we get from this to Rebels?
Spoiler alert, there's no answer.
What happened? We don't know. It's not in this show.
And that's why I was saying, like, I thought this episode was supposed to be set up for that because if you look at like the facts of this episode, this is the first time we see all three clones from that Rebels episode is in this or
Gregor's
mentioned or
not.
whatever.
Yeah, Gregor's mentioned, and we'll get to that a couple of notes down.
Right. But like, this is the first time like they mention all three of them, and it's like, what? How? Like, nothing in these two episodes remotely suggest that those three are the only ones that survive and then get together and go, be a throuple somewhere. Like, I don't understand where we get to from here.
Yes, how did the clone polycule end up happening? Like what happened here? No, I don't know is the thing. It's weird because I'm sitting here thinking about it and I'm like, okay, a lot of the setup of the show was dealing with this clone stuff in the background and then this kind of felt like a I don't want to say half-assed, but like a half measure that they wiped out a lot of the clones that like were with Rex on this base, but they don't wipe out the whole organization. So my thought was this was eventually at the end of the show, this clone thing that Rex is doing is going to go badly. And he's going to wind up with Wolf and Gregor and they're going to head off. And then that doesn't happen. So now I'm like, I don't want to give other people on the internet's theories like too much credence because they're just theories and everybody's having fun. I do feel like maybe they might have been setting up a clone rebellion for this show. And for whatever reason on the back end decided they needed to end this show.
I think so too.
And so they spent, and this is also plays into part of my theories about why certain character beats and certain characters are set up in the first two seasons that do not come back in the third. That they were like, we got to end this show for whatever reason. Like they were planning maybe this like 5 or 6 season show. And for whatever reason, they decided to end the show. And so the third season had to be like, well, we got to rush and wrap up the main plot of the show. So either we can go and do something else or figure out what we're doing. But I don't know, it reads weird to me. The way that these episodes, both so much time is spent in these two episodes for not a lot of real movement in this particular element of the meta plot.
Right. Like you could have theoretically done this as one singular episode and just took out a lot of the, like, I'm not going to call it filler, but there are conversations and things that happen that could have just been like nixed because it what doesn't actually move the plot flow forward. It just is what it is. Like they just there's certain things that they do, and then like they because they go back to the clone and they talk to him, and then they go back again and they talk to him. Like there's so many times where they could have like just done that one time or had that one conversation, and then like that was it. The only time we saw that scene. It just doesn't make sense, honestly. And there's so many things that you could have just nixed, I think, that and then made it into one singular episode. But you know,
Yeah, and that's my thing too. Is it so much? They devoted 2 episodes of a 15 episode season to
right.
this plot, and this is a good plot. Like this is a good episode. I don't want to be like this episode was pointless. It was filler. It did nothing. I said at the beginning I liked the slow pace of the episode. I actually liked that a lot. But it is also worth asking the question: why are these 2 episodes given so much emphasis when really all they do for kind of the main plot, the meta arc of the entire season, is explain what the CX troopers are? That's what they do. Rex and his people don't come back for the finale. You know, Echo's back for the finale, but Rex and his people aren't. But also, there's not really any, it feels like, consequences for Rex himself as a consequence of these 2 episodes. And we'll get into this more, I think, when we get into the next episode. So I don't want to belabor the point too much. But I do have to wonder if there were plot lines that were being set up for future seasons of The Bad Batch, and The Bad Batch might have been cut short. And that is why those plot lines are kind of left dangling or unexplored. The team was like, well, maybe we'll pick this up later with a different show or with a game or a comic or something.
You know, I could also see them doing like I know this is really random, but I feel like I could see them in the future doing another Clone Wars, like this is the final season thing. Like I know that Clone Wars didn't actually truly like end, like, and that's why they were given a final season kind of thing. But I feel like they still could do that with this show. Like I don't know why, like they could do another quote final season.
I think it's going to be probably more of a spinoff. They may do a limited
Yep.
season spinoff
Or
to
a movie
resolve some of these outgoing. Yeah, or a movie. That would actually be really great if they did a movie.
that set
Because
up
then
that
we
one
have
episode
the
of Rebel.
well, then we have the arc of the Clone Wars starts with a movie, but not if you're watching in chronological order. If you're watching in release order, it starts with a movie, and then we have the Clone Wars, and then we have the Bad Batch, and then we have a final movie to wrap this whole part of the universe up. I think you're
Yeah.
onto something with that.
I think that would be good because then you could kind of combine elements of both the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch in that movie, and you could be like, "Hey, here's a little bit of maybe I don't know, Ahsoka shows up or something like that, like in Bad Batch movie, like for some reason, just to I don't know what that reason would be. Or honestly, Stinky
And
needs to
also,
show up. That's what he needs to.
truly,
He's the bridge between
the
Clone
fact
Wars.
the fact he's not in the Mandalorian
Oh, that's a crime.
irks me.
That's a crime.
That's a crime. That's a crime. We cannot talk about the Aftermath books right now. I will also say, too, for what the Bad Batch was able to do, they did decide to end their main plot, and they ended it really well. And we'll get to the final scene when we get to the final episode. The finale is really good, actually. My next note just says, fuck Karen Travis.
What does Scorch have to do with this right now? What are you bringing him into this for? Don't bring him into your fight.
He's right smack in the middle of my fight with Karen Travis. Because he's from the Republic Commando games that she wrote the novelizations for. And she was also the one who wrote Imperial Commando, in which he becomes an Imperial Commando. And then she rage quit the books.
I do want to bring up Scorch, though, now that you have, obviously.
Because we don't have time to get into.
Yeah,
I do not have beef with Karen Travis for being like, fuck you, George Lucas, I don't want to write these books anymore. I have beef with her for a lot of other reasons, like being a TERF. We have beef for that, but I don't really have beef with her for dropping her book series anymore. One day when we truly run out of time, we can talk about Imperial Commando.
Okay, great.
On the podcast. I'll have Colton on, or I'll have Ryan on, we'll talk about Imperial Commando. Anyway, fuck Karen Travis. I'm glad she's not writing Star Wars anymore. Fuck her. She's a TERF, and I don't like her very much. Anyway, Scorch is here. Did you also see, this was so fucking funny, we'll cover this in the finale, but did you see how, like, super mad a lot of weird fans online were that Scorch spoilers for the finale?
Are you sure you want to include that?
Oh, no, I do. I want to bring it up here.
Yeah, I'm going to bleep it out, but continue.
Okay. Apparently, there's a lot of very weird. I understand. Here's the thing. We're going to continue on the Karen Travis thing. I understand too that the writing she did with the Mandalorians in her books, even though she didn't create a lot of the Mandalorian culture's genesis, that was Abel Pena in Star Wars Insider. But even though, like, the stuff that she codified in the books and that forms kind of the basis for a lot of the Mandalorian stuff, that's impactful to a lot of people, important to a lot of people, and I do understand that. And I do think that that sort of dedication to like a shared nerd thing, as long as it's being inclusive and cool, which a lot of these Mandalorian cosplayers and things are, that's rad and that's cool. Keep doing that. Cannot take that away from you. There are some people that apparently are very weird, not about the Mandalorians, but about Karen Travis's books specifically, I discovered. And they
Okay.
got real mad at the finale of this show.
Interesting. I don't know why, but
I can't imagine why, because anyway, I've expanded too much on this. Commander Scorch mentions that there is an internal homing device.
and
What
bef-
is it?
I
I
okay,
want
so
to
I
know.
was gonna bring up two things about this. So one is there's an implant somewhere else. It's not in their teeth, it's not in their whatever. Somewhere in their body, there's a whole nother implant. I don't know where Hemlock decided to put it, but we'll just leave that a mystery, I guess. I
It's
don't
in their
know.
balls.
I was gonna say,
They put it in their balls.
I don't know where it is.
They
No,
clearly put
actually,
it in a place that no one's gonna find it.
I was thinking it was going to be something more like something scientifically, like it's like nanobots in their bloodstream or something like that. Some weird shit. Like, like, I don't
I
know.
thought, see, my thought, because Crosshair mentions later in the episode, like, oh, it's not a thing that you can detect. My thought is it's a bio tracker of some sort. But
Right.
then
That's
I'm
what I
like,
mean. Yeah.
that tech doesn't really exist. But then I remembered, like, the inhibitor chip exists, and the inhibitor chip looks kind of vat grown. So, like, what's going on here? What's happening? Where is this thing? I don't know. I just choose to believe that they covered it. They covered these tracking devices in a whole lot of very smooth substance, and just hid them somewhere no one would think to check.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Because this is a terrible show, Bradley, and we're terrible people.
Also, the one thing about Scorch that I don't know why this was so jarring for me, but when he spoke, I was like, why is D. Bradley Baker doing the voice of Scorch? Like, I was like, he's not a
Because
clone in my
he's a clone.
brain. No, I know he is, but in my brain, I'm like, that helmet's different. Why is he talking like a clone? Like, I don't know why. I just needed, I don't know why Scorch, I felt like needed like a voice modulator or something, like just to be slightly different. I don't know. I
Well,
wanted them to
here's
do that.
here's what's weird and here's what's funny. So I'm on this quest to fill in some gaps in my Legends knowledge, and I'm also kind of revisiting stuff from Legends that I haven't touched in a while. I'm actually going to do Republic Commando because I was kind of watching like videos from Republic Commando. I also forgot that like the other members of the Delta Squad, they don't sound at all like clones. They have different distinct voices.
That's
So
what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm also kind of used to Scorch sounding different, but for different reasons.
Yeah, I don't know why. I felt like he needed to sound different. I don't know. Not that I mean, obviously he's a fucking clone, so it doesn't make sense for him to sound different. But for some reason, because his helmet is different, I was like, I need his
You
voice
look at his
modulator to
helmet
be
at this
different.
stage and you think
Yeah,
Stormtrooper
yeah, it's definitely different. Yeah.
is what it is. My final bookending note is I found it interesting that the start of this section, Rex is trying really hard to save as many clones as possible. And at the end of this section, or at least the end of my notes, we have Scorch and CX2 definitely going to kill CX1.
Right.
That is definitely the plan, and we find it out later that that is indeed the plan. But I found it an interesting bookend that we got Rex being like, I need to save all of the clones possible. And Scorch and CX2 are like, yeah, so we're not even going to bother to free this guy. He got himself captured. Kill him.
Section 3. In hyperspace, the Bad Batch heads to meet Rex at his secret base. Once they arrive on Teth, Hauser is displeased to see Crosshair, with whom he has unresolved issues from Ryloth. Before he leaves, Echo gives Omega an energy crossbow. The clone assassin soon arrives, following CX-1's homing beacon. Inside the base, Rex reveals Omega as a target and tensions rise between Hauser and Crosshair. Omega talks about a project involving M-Count. She's unaware about the purpose of the project, but explains that they were taking blood samples from all the clone prisoners, including her. Rex has heard about M-Counts, but is unsure what it is about.
We do get a mention of Gregor. Gregor, if you're watching in chronological order, he is the guy that was rescued from the random diner in the worst arc of Clone Wars, which also happens to be George Lucas's favorite arc and also happens to be my boyfriend's favorite arc. So if that tells you what living in my house is like, he will also turn up as one member of the clone trio in Rebels. But he does get a few mentions in this episode, and the first one is here. I also find it very funny how... Remember how last episode we spent the whole episode basically getting Hunter and Crosshair to wear their Get Along shirt?
Right.
Right? This episode is about how, okay, the Batch trusts him now, but everybody else is like, fuck Crosshair. Seriously, most of Hauser's dialogue is fuck Crosshair.
Well, and even Hauser throughout the episode is like, oh, we're being too easy on the CX1 clone. Like, we need to get more information out of him. And it's like, he doesn't really have the same mentality that Rex does, which is, we got to save everybody. You know, they're all our brothers. It doesn't matter if they've killed our own brothers, if they've done anything bad. Like, they're still our brothers. We have to save them because at the end of the day, like, we only have our brothers. Like, that's all we have. And the Empire is not going to save us. They're trying to get rid of us. So it's just funny that Hauser immediately, well, Hauser also has just beef with Crosshair to begin with, so it's not really that
we
weird.
remember Ryloth back in season 1.
Right.
Yeah, and I can't really blame Hauser for it either because again, yeah, they have beef going back to Ryloth, but also like somebody has to be. In order for an organization like this to work, somebody in that organization has to be the guy to say, yeah, we should not be trusting this. Somebody needs to be the skeptic in order for this to function. Also, the energy crossbow is sick. That's point 1A with the crossbow. But point 1B, which I thought more interesting, did you notice how practiced Omega is when she grabs this thing? She kind of grabs it and tests it. She doesn't do the kid thing where she like holds it up and examines it. She immediately tests the capabilities, decides in her brain that it is functional, and moves on with it.
Also, I'm not bringing this up, but someone else was bringing this up on Reddit. I saw that she never uses this crossbow.
That is, I'm pretty sure, correct.
Ever in the show.
I'm gonna start tracking.
Okay, from this point on, let's make
I'm
a mental
99% sure that anonymous Reddit commenter is correct because I saw her get the crossbow and went, I completely forgot she got a new crossbow.
Right, because she uses
the
pink
use
one
that
in the second season.
Yes,
but this one is green, and she never uses it. It's on the poster for the Bad Batch season 3. She's literally holding it in the poster, and it's the crossbow, but she never uses it.
We will track and see.
We will track this. Yes,
because I also believe she does not use it at all throughout the entirety of the rest of the series.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, because when he gives it to her and she's like, where did you get this? He's like, oh, I have this interesting contact or whatever that I'm dealing with. And I'm thinking like, was this set up for like season 4? Like there was something there that was supposed to be utilized later on, and maybe the crossbow would have came up later on, but I don't know. Like, unless it's like Chewbacca randomly, I don't really know who else uses a fucking crossbow. Like, other, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know what that was leading to. I don't even know why he gave her this other than like, oh, she just needs to protect herself. But it's like,
it's given the like Han Solo receiving the blaster in Solo treatment of like, it's this moment that we animated and voiced and is in the episode, and then she doesn't use the blaster at all. The crossbow, blaster crossbow, whatever. Anyway, then the CX1 trooper, or the CX2 trooper arrives. And I'm just going to read my note verbatim here of his arrival scene. You know the ship is evil because it is a triangle.
They're all evil.
They're all evil. If a ship is a triangle, it is evil. Name one ship that is a triangle that is not evil.
I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
good guy ships are...
The Jedi Starfighters in the prequel.
Give me that one. That one.
They're pretty triangular shaped. I mean,
they're triangles.
They're pretty much triangles. Yeah.
Most of the time, good guy ships are round. Bad guy ships are triangle.
But to be fair, after the Order 66, they're just reusing the same similar design or whatever that the clone ships all had or whatever, basically. So theoretically, the evil people...
This is clearly a new ship.
Yes.
This is clearly a new ship.
I'm just trying to justify it slightly, but yeah. So
You
triangle's
will
bad.
fail.
Yeah.
Triangle bad. We know this is a
Triangle bad.
bad ship because it is triangle, and triangle bad. It's like how the bad guys all have green lasers on their ships and the good guys all have red lasers on their ships. And that always
Yes.
confused me as a kid because the lightsabers are the reverse color. The bad guy lightsabers are red and the good guy lightsabers are green. So why is the ship's blaster bolts green if you're a bad guy and red if you're a good guy? I don't understand it. Make it make sense, George. George Lucas personally answered to me personally for the choices you made with the blaster bolts for ships. Fucking hell. I also do like I'm skipping much of the conversation because Omega just relays information we already know.
Right.
I do like how Rex is like, yeah, I don't know Jedi bullshit, but I recognize it when I see it. And
Right.
this
He says it
Jedi
specifically. Yeah.
bullshit.
He's like, I definitely have heard that
I have
before
heard that
somewhere.
before.
But now I want to know when he heard that, or if it's just like a
Well,
generic.
here's
like,
the thing. We do know that M count has practical scientific and forensic applications. You can use it as a blood marker. You can use it as a number of things. So you can use it, as we see in Phantom Menace, to get a broad idea of the force sensitivity of a particular being. We will see that being used later on in this show. It's also being used with the cloning, but it's also got some forensic applications that you can use. So it definitely came up at some point.
Section 4. The clone assassin scales the mountain to Rex's base camp and plants remote-controlled explosives. Omega informs Rex of more clone prisoners on Tantus, prompting Rex to pledge their rescue. Crosshair reveals that there is a special clone division trained as operatives, where identities are erased and clones are reconditioned. He discloses his familiarity with the program, having been a candidate, but failing due to his inherent defects. Rex mentions capturing a clone assassin, surprising Crosshair, who warns of Imperial trackers that evade their scans.
I only really have one note for this whole section, but it's broken up into two parts.
Okay.
Section number 1. Crosshair informs the group that there is actually a super secret group of specially trained brainwashed clones serving at Hemlock's personal pleasure that no one knows about, directly controlled by Hemlock and brainwashed by him to do whatever Hemlock wants without question and without individuality. And my question is, why is Crosshair telling them this now?
Yeah, because wasn't the whole plot of like the episode where him and Hunter were trying to get back on their good side, basically, was that he needs to tell them everything to show his loyalty or whatever, right? And you would have thought in the time that he had now resolved those issues with Hunter from till now that he would have said something like, oh,
he also
by the way,
debriefs. He debriefs. They mention at the start of this episode, he debriefed with Echo.
Right.
And he told Echo a bunch of stuff about Tantus. Now, I do believe that Crosshair at this point does not know the exact coordinates of Tantus. He doesn't know how to get there.
Right.
That part's true. He's not lying. This, I was like, wait, why didn't you tell Echo this? Which I understand from a writing perspective. It's so we, the audience, can learn it now.
Right.
But also, Crosshair, why did you not tell Echo?
I feel like they should have included a line or something. Well, I guess Echo's not here, but if Echo had been here, he could have included a line or something of dialogue where he said something like, oh, this was in your debrief or whatever, and that's like why we captured this guy or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like some, like, I feel like
Or
Rex
like-
should have known or something. Yeah.
Yeah, or
I don't know.
that's what
It
I,
just-
that's how I would have done it. Is I would have had
Yeah.
Rex say something like, "This
We
was in your
know.
debrief."
Yeah, exactly.
And then I would have Hauser ask, "Why weren't you?" Here's how. Not to be. I don't want to be too how I would have done it.
Right.
But if it were me and I was doing the scene, the way that I would do it is I would have Rex be the one to say, you mentioned these brainwashed clones in your, or I would have Crosshair say something about their brainwashed clones. Have Rex say, yes, you mentioned this in your debrief to Echo. Then have Hauser say, well, why weren't you one of these brainwashed clones? And that leads into the rest of the conversation. The way it's written now, it feels like Crosshair's just been holding it back the whole time.
Right.
And we're not really given a good reason for why. So that irks me. But I couldn't focus on that for too long because I really liked how a lot of what Crosshair says sets up the contrast between the CX troopers and the clones. Because the whole point of the CX troopers is that they strip away the individuality from them. And that's the whole point of the clones in the Clone Wars, is that they're individual beings. So I did like that a lot. I like that we're setting it up here as well, especially going into the finale when we get there. That was it. That was my only notes for this section.
Okay, good. I mean, it's a short section. Section 5. The clone assassin infiltrates the base and notices Omega. Outside, the assassin informs Scorch about Omega's presence with the rogue clones and is ordered to send coordinates for a recovery strike team to capture her alive. Meanwhile, the Bad Batch and Rex confront CX-1, who recognizes Crosshair. CX-1 warns of the Empire's imminent arrival, prompting a series of explosions that disrupt the communication. CX-1 is shot by the assassin, and the clones engage him.
I also only have one note for this section, and that I found it's really interesting that psychological, warfare and manipulation is something that the CX troopers are trained to do. Because they immediately zero in on Crosshair and are trying to get him split off from the rest of the group. And I just thought that was interesting training for them to have.
I also like how the assassin is like, what fucking shot is that? Where how he was able to shoot the CX-1 like that perfectly, like when they were, it was like through the door or something. Like, I don't know what it was. It was so like Crosshair level shooting. So I'm like, how are they highly trained, I don't understand how they're this good at doing stuff when they're just clones. Like they're just generic clones. Like you'd think that if they turned Crosshair into one of these ones, then that would be something that he could do.
It's because they wipe away anything that makes them good people and turn them basically just into machines.
Right.
And they're min-maxed is what's going on.
They're min-maxed.
They're min-maxed now. So rather than having things like compassion and empathy,
right, it's
and
just shoot,
the
kill,
capacity for growth and learning, all those parts of their brain are now filled with shoot and kill. But also, all clones come from the same base template. Like, any clone specialists are all from the same genetic template. There's no difference here, right? So any clone has the capacity to learn these skills because they're made from the same guy who had the physical capabilities to do these skills. So what they've just done here is they've made it so that there is no goodness or humanity to them, and they are just tools, and now they're really effective tools. It sucks. Royce Hemlock, die by my hand.
I mean, I don't want to speak too much on like the finale because it's going to be important later, and so I'm not going to say too much, but I feel like the CX-1 storyline or the CX assassin storyline didn't like go far enough here. Like, I needed them to start introducing different CX-1 troopers, if that makes sense. I know it's going to be more relevant later on when we see more later on that are different looking, and I feel like this is the time where we should have seen the different looking ones.
we'll get to the CX troopers a little more in the finale.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff with this show that's like here and just beneath the surface, but it never really comes to the surface unless you go digging and looking for it.
Right.
And I think the point of the CX storyline, that one is one of those things. All right, next section.
Section 6.
I don't like that smug fucking grin on your face. I'm just gonna throw this out right now. Bradley in our Zoom call has a smug fucking grin on his face because he knows what's in the next section. He knows what he's about to bring up. Go on. You know what? No, go ahead. Go ahead, Bradley. Take us into the next section. What happens next?
Section 6. The Bad Batch and Omega retreat to the command room as Rex Group battles the intruder. During the fight, Fireball's flamethrower backfires, causing a cave-in that destroys the mess hall. In space, Commander Wolf's troops approach Teth.
Okay, fine, we'll talk about the fucking flamethrower. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, so Fireball grabs a flamethrower. It's a big flamethrower. Point that out right now. We are not talking about a wrist-mounted flamethrower. We are talking about a flamethrower that clearly has, like, fuel inside of it. It's kind of a handheld thing that he sort of picks up, but it's got to be held with both hands because you got to have fuel and you got to have mechanisms to make a flamethrower really effectively work, because you really want to get that consistent, this is important, consistent burst of flame. Because when you're setting something on fire, sometimes you have to fire at it for an extended period of time. So right off the bat, ding, good flamethrower. None of this little wrist-mounted bullshit. None of this shock and awe bullshit. We got a flamethrower that is actually here to cause fires. Great. Runs across the thing at the guy. Now, the CX trooper is taking shots. This is the other point. And so, what Fireball does is activates the flamethrower, not to burn the guy, but to put a whole fuckload of fire in between this guy and the target. So one, he can't see it, and two, he's blinded. Great use of your flamethrower. That is really economical. You're not going to burn the guy out, but you can make sure that his scope is blinded, because what is it going to do staring into a fucking fireball like that? It's going to burn your eyes. It's gonna hurt. Like, this is not like little fire in the fireplace fire. This is a ball of fucking flame. It's gonna be painful to look at. So yeah, great use of your flamethrower. Here's where I run into a problem. Guy gets shot, falls. The flamethrower still has a little flame because that's how flamethrowers work.
Sure.
You have a little flame and then you use the flame to ignite some sort of projected out fuel thing or gas or whatever, and it burns a just giant fireball. So the flame is still there, and the guy couldn't turn it off when he was getting shot. It hits a thermal detonator and blows it up. So I'm going to call this actually a very effective use of the flamethrower. Not quite the use that Fireball, I think, intended for it, but here we go. This one is going on my list of the flamethrower makes sense, actually.
Oh, okay. I just love that it's a person whose name is Fireball using it. I find that hilarious and ironic. I just think it's funny.
I hate you so much at all times.
And don't you love how they end the episode with this? They just were thinking of you.
Who at Lucasfilm? Here's the thing I want to know, because I know our numbers, right? And we're not doing like insane numbers on this show. Someone at Lucasfilm, I don't know who you are. Thank you for listening to the show. You can stop putting flamethrower things into these shows just to piss me off. And by stop doing it, I mean keep doing it. It's really funny. The content writes itself. Keep feeding me. I will keep putting out content. Also pay me. That works too. The usual accusations are going around with the acolyte of like paid Disney shills or whatever. And I'm like, I would love to get paid by the Walt Disney Corporation to say nice things about it. I don't have morals and ethics when it comes to this stuff. Pay me money. I'll happy to just say nice things. I'm gonna say nice things about the acolyte anyway, because the acolyte rules. But it's nicer if you pay me. Yeah, okay, let's end really fast. We get a shot, like a really quick scene of Commander Wolf. Commander Wolf, we remember, is the clone trooper who was with Plo Koon throughout the entire war, leader of the Wolf Pack. His name is Wolf because Dave Filoni likes wolves. He is also here, and he will be a bigger role in the next episode. And that is how our episode ends. Yay.
Next week, I guess we're going to do
I forgot this is me. Fuck. This is me. I forgot, because last week we did the Acolyte, and right. I was... Okay, final thoughts. Bradley, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
It was definitely set up, and that's not a bad thing. If you were watching this when it came out, which was thankfully back-to-back, because they dropped them back-to-back. Now, we will not be dropping our episodes back-to-back, but you will have the tension of knowing that maybe something bad might happen to the Bad Batch. I don't know if they're going to make it out of this one, Charles. Who knows? We'll find out next week.
Not us back when this aired, because we could watch the next episode immediately afterwards.
That's right.
And I think I did stay up to watch these.
I definitely watched them back to back. I don't know if I stayed up to watch them, but I definitely watched them back to back.
I definitely watched them back to back. I think I stayed up to watch them. I think I went, 2-part series of episodes. Something really important is going to happen.
And I'm glad that they did do that, because had they not, and then this been like made us wait a whole week for this episode, oof, I would have been like,
yeah,
no, that does not work.
But we're on the up and up. My final thoughts is I really like this episode a lot. Yes, I just spent a bunch of time nitpicking it because that's who I am as a human person. But also take notice of the parts I didn't talk about, the parts I didn't say anything about, positive or negative. I was just watching the episode. Music's great, the direction's great, the atmosphere building is great. There's not a lot of lore and character stuff to talk about in those moments, but they're great. And I enjoyed them a lot. Yeah, we're going to go into next week. Next week, we're covering Season 3, Episode 8, something, Extraction.
Episode 7.
I think. This is Episode 8, isn't it?
This is Episode 6.
Are you fucking kidding me? I thought it was Episode 7 the whole fucking time. Pluggables. Bradley, reality TV. Watch it on Peacock and Bravo. Latest thing is The Circle. You can watch it on Netflix. Me, I'm on TTRPG Star Wars High Republic podcast. For Light and Dice. Also write gay thriller books. Beach House Studios. Kindle Unlimited. That is it. And just like this episode, we're going to abruptly end in the middle by having Bradley run the socials. Thank you for listening to this episode of Gold Squadron Gaze. Did Charles fuck something up? Email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com to let us know. You can also find us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gaze, and you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Gold Squadron Gaze. You can also find us on YouTube at our Gold Squadron Gaze YouTube channel, where we post full episodes of this show. Finally, if you liked the show, don't forget to rate us and give us a review on your favorite podcast platform. That allows other people to find our show. As always, thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze, and we'll see you next week. Did you see who the commencement speaker was?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know I went to school with him?
Really?
He was in several of my classes with me.
How? He's like a famous movie star.
The YouTube guy?
It was the commencement person.
Oh, not that commencement speaker. Well, now you're gonna have to cut this part out, but
yeah, but
he said he gave one of the speeches.
Okay. Well, the head person was.
Okay, well, is not the person.
And I was like, you went to school with a.
The horrifying thing was someone I went to school with gave a speech at the graduation for our alma mater, and I was like, what have I done with my life?